Welcome back. You tune into Markets at Noon. We're talking about all that's making news, and of course, the sugar counters are definitely in the sweet spot today. In fact, we see Balrampur Chini that's up 5%. Renuka sugar is also up almost 2.5 or thereabouts, and we have Dhampur Chini sugar that is also up almost 4%. The news is that the centre has decided to allow export of 1.5 million tons of sugar for the 2025-2026 sugar season, and to weigh in on this and the way forward, we are now joined by Atul Chaturvedi, who's the chairman of APOA, and executive chairman Shree Renuka Sugars is now joining us. Hi, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, firstly, Food Minister Prahlad Joshi, from the government has said that the centre has decided to allow exports of 1.5 million ton for the season of 2025 and 26, in line with what you were expecting and the sugar industry expectations.
This is very much in line with what the sugar industry has been demanding. In fact, the sugar industry was worried that with the large looming crop this year, the chances were that the prices in the domestic market would probably collapse. And the industry was more keen that this announcement comes before the crushing season to ensure that the fall in the domestic prices doesn't happen too much. And I think this is the right signal from the government. But as far as we are concerned, we treat it as a work in process. In fact, if the health of the industry has to improve, it is important that the minimum selling price and the price of molasses sourced from the sugar sector should be increased in line with the FRPs going up. And even the SAPs or state advised prices are also going up now. In fact, Karnataka has also followed the UP example. So it's important that MSP and cane juice and B-heavy ethanol prices are moved upwards. But definitely this is a move in the right direction. And this also reflects that the government understands that the health of the farmer is also dependent on the health of the industry. If the industry is not healthy, obviously, sooner or later, the farmer is also going to become unhealthy.
Right. We understand and we get that point that the government needs to go ahead and increase the MSP on sugar and even as far as ethanol prices are concerned. But since we are talking about exports, I wanted to get your sense on the inventory situation currently of sugar in the domestic market. And do you expect the government to increase the export cap going forward as the season progresses? And for the full year, from 1.5 million ton that has been announced currently, could that inch higher gradually over the course of the year?
No, as far as the sugar inventory in the country or the inventory which will happen in the course of the crushing season is concerned, there is no cause of worry as far as the quantity is concerned. But having said that, I'm not too gung-ho on exports happening big time to start with, because the international values are also under pressure. The current values would be about, say, something like $410 FOB, which would translate to about 35 or 36 rupees per kilo, depending on the location of the mills. And the domestic values are in any case higher than that. So I don't see exports happening big time, but this will at least ensure that the fall in the prices doesn't happen. And as far as increasing the quantum of export is concerned, much would depend on how the exports pan out over the next couple of months. And I don't see exports booming big time.
Right. Mr. Chaturvedi, one last question. How are the prices in the export market faring versus the domestic market? And does it really make economical sense to export to the extent permitted?
At this point of time, it would not make much sense to export. But you never know if once the crushing season is in the peak, then the urgency to get rid of the sugar happens. And at that point of time, there could be a little bit of an export happening out of the country, but it would not be big time because internationally the sugar values are moving southwards. In fact, if current level is say $410 on London, the forward is much lower, lower by about $20, $30. So I'm not too gung-ho because the world is sitting on a lot of sugar, and this year India is also going to be sitting on a lot of
Right.
sugar. So the escape route is only MSP and ethanol prices going up.
All right, just stay on with us. We need to take a short commercial break and we'll come back and chat with you once again. But that's all the time we have on this edition of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in.